There are worse things than being unwanted, being calculated, measured, priced, and found worthless. That's worse. The pack council chamber smelled like old wood and burnt sage. Serena sat in the center of the room with her hands folded in her lap, trying to keep them still, trying not to look like she already knew what was coming. 20 pairs of eyes watched the healer finish. Margot was gray-haired and expressionless, the kind of woman who spoke like she was reading weather reports. She pressed her fingers to Serena's abdomen one last time, then stepped back. She didn't look at Serena when she spoke. "The blood work is conclusive," Margot said. "Flat, clinical. There is no viable hormonal pathway. The structural assessments confirm it. This is not delay. This is permanence." The room went silent. Serena heard it anyway. Not the words, the meaning behind them. Her father leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled beneath his chin, gaze fixed on a knot in the table as if staring hard enough could change the grain. "So," he said, voice dry as old parchment. "She's infertile." "Correct." Another silence, longer this time. Elder Tobin, the pack's trade negotiator, cleared his throat like he was trying to soften what could not be softened. "That complicates things." "It eliminates things," her father corrected, still calm, still businesslike. "A daughter's value is in her marriage prospects. If she can't produce heirs, no alpha will take her as a mate. She becomes a resource drain." Serena's nails dug into her palms. Her mother's voice came out small, brittle. "She's still our daughter, Gregor." "And she will always be," her father said, finally looking at Serena. Not with anger, not even disappointment, with nothing. "But sentiment doesn't pay debts. Sentiment doesn't secure alliances." He turned back to Elder Tobin. "The Northern Territories have been stalling on the trade agreement for 3 months. What did the envoy say they wanted?" Tobin hesitated. "A gesture of goodwill. A symbolic offering." Her father's gaze didn't flicker. "A person." Yes." Her father nodded once, as if confirming a number on a ledger. "Then we offer her." Serena's breath caught so sharply it hurt. "Gregor!" her mother started. "She has no future here, Elaine," her father said, and something in his tone sharpened. "No pack will want her, no alpha will claim her, but the Alpha King's court." He paused, just long enough for the words to land. "They always have use for attendants, companions, political ornaments." Serena's stomach turned, not because she didn't understand, because she did. "This way," her father continued, as if explaining a kindness. "She's still useful." Her hands began to shake. She pressed them harder into her thighs until her muscles ached. Elder Tobin shifted. "The envoy arrives tomorrow. If we're going to make this offer." "We are." Her father stood, smoothing the front of his jacket. "Serena, go home and pack. 1 bag. You leave at dawn." He started toward the door. "Father." Serena's voice cracked on the word. He stopped, didn't turn around. "This is a kindness," he said quietly. "You'll have a roof over your head, meals, safety. That's more than most broken things get." Then he left. The council members filed out after him, murmuring in low voices like she wasn't even in the room. Her mother lingered for a moment, pale and drawn. She didn't approach Serena, didn't touch her shoulder, didn't say goodbye. She only looked at the chair Serena had been sitting in, then reached out and smoothed the tablecloth as if tidying up after a spill. Then she too was gone. Only Isla remained. Her sister stood slowly, smoothing her skirt, face carefully blank. She walked over to Serena like she was approaching something fragile that might shatter at the wrong tone. "You should have told someone sooner," Isla said softly. "Maybe if you'd known earlier, Father could have..." "Could have what?" Serena's voice came out raw, jagged. Traded me sooner? Isla flinched, but she didn't deny it. She only turned and walked away. Serena sat alone until the candles burned low, until the shadows felt heavier than the air. Then she stood on unsteady legs and walked home in the dark. She packed one bag, a change of clothes, a brush, the small wooden carving her brother had made before he died. She didn't close her eyes all night. At dawn, the envoy arrived. He was tall and cold-eyed, dressed in black leather stamped with a silver crest, a wolf's head bisected by a crown. He didn't introduce himself. He didn't ask her name. He pulled a folded ledger from his coat and ran one finger down the page. Serena, he read. Packless status pending. Infertile. He looked up, disinterested. This is the offering? Yes, her father said. The envoy's gaze flicked over Serena once, briefly, like inventory. She'll do, he said, and made a small mark in the ledger with charcoal. The caravan leaves within the hour. She comes now or the deal is void. Her mother made a choked sound. Her father ignored it. She's ready. The envoy gestured toward the black carriage waiting in the road. Get in. Serena picked up her bag. Her hands were still shaking. No one hugged her. No one blessed her. Isla watched from the doorway with her arms crossed, expression unreadable. Serena climbed into the carriage. The door slammed shut, and as the wheels began to roll, she pressed her face to the small barred window and watched her family's house disappear into the trees. No one waved. The carriage stopped. Serena stepped down onto black stone glazed with frost. The air bit at her lungs. Ahead, the citadel rose out of the morning like something built to outlast mercy. No banners, no warmth, just iron-dark walls and a gate that looked like a mouth. A woman in black stood waiting. Tall, gray hair pulled back tight, face carved from ice. Name, she said. Serena. The woman pulled a ledger from her belt and scanned it as if Serena were a shipment. Ah. Her eyes lifted without interest. The infertile one. Serena's stomach tightened. She forced her spine to stay straight. This way. Inside, the corridors were cold and narrow, the air smelling faintly of smoke and old stone. Serena kept her bag close. She didn't ask questions. Questions were for people who had choices. They entered the great hall. It was larger than any room Serena had ever stood in, but it didn't feel grand. It felt watched. Shadows pooled between pillars. Torches burned high, their flames steady, as if even the fire here knew better than to flicker. 6 women stood in a line near the center of the room. Silk dresses, jeweled combs, soft perfume layered over wolf, strong, fertile, desirable. They looked like they belonged in a court. Serena was shoved to the end. She looked down at herself. Threadbare dress, dirt under her nails, one small bag clutched in both hands. The gray-haired woman stalked in front of them like a general inspecting troops. You are here to serve the Alpha King's court, she announced. You will work, you will obey, and if you are useful, you may earn a place in this household. Someone whispered her name behind Serena. Mistress Hagar. Hagar stopped in front of the first woman, inspected her hair, her posture, her scent. Then she reached Serena. Hagar's mouth curled. What is this? She asked loud enough for the room to hear. She gestured at Serena like she was pointing out a stain. A wolfless runt? A few of the women snickered. Quietly. Cruelly. Hagar leaned closer, lowering her voice to a whisper that still carried. Your father must have been desperate to clear his garbage. Heat rose in Serena's face. She kept her eyes forward, kept her hands still. If she reacted, they'd feed on it. If she lasts a week, I'll be shocked, Hagar said, straightening. Don't bother learning her name." Then the air changed. It wasn't dramatic. It was worse than that. One moment the hall felt cold. The next it felt like the cold was holding its breath. Hagar went rigid. The women in line stiffened as if pulled by the same invisible string. Footsteps echoed from the far end of the hall. Slow, deliberate, impossibly heavy. "Eyes down," Hagar hissed. Every woman dropped her gaze. Every woman, except Serena. Not because she was brave, because something in her snapped. She'd bowed her head in the council chamber. She'd swallowed her voice while her father priced her like meat. She wouldn't do it again. The Alpha King entered without ceremony. He didn't walk into the room. He filled it. Massive shoulders, black clothing, no crown, no ornamentation. He moved with a predator's patience, as if time belonged to him and everyone else was only borrowing it. But it was his eyes that stopped Serena's breath. Silver, cold, sharp enough to cut. He moved down the line slowly, hands clasped behind his back. He didn't look at faces first. He looked at posture. At trembling fingers. At who could hold themselves still. He stopped in front of the first woman, a beta's daughter in pale blue silk. He said nothing. Moved on. The second. The third. Each woman froze, silent, desperate to be chosen and terrified of being seen. He didn't choose any of them. He stopped in front of Serena. Serena felt it like a weight pressing against her ribs. His gaze locked onto hers. She should have looked away. She didn't. Something shifted, barely visible. A small tightening at the edge of his jaw. Not anger, not approval, recognition, or irritation. It was hard to tell with men like him. "This one," he said. 2 words. Final. The room went silent so fast it felt like the hall had swallowed. Hagar's mouth fell open. "Sire, she's defective. She can't—" "I didn't ask for your opinion, Hagar." His voice was low, even, controlled. That made it worse. Hagar's face went pale. He stepped closer to Serena. Close enough that she could smell him. Cedar and smoke and something wild beneath it. Close enough that she had to fight the urge to take a step back. He didn't touch her. But she felt the space between them narrow anyway. "What's your name?" he asked. "Serena." A pause. "Serena," he repeated slowly, like he was testing the sound. Then he looked at Hagar. "Take her to the East Wing. Clean her. Clothe her. She stays." "But, sire, she's—" His eyes flashed silver. Lethal. "She stays." Hagar swallowed hard. "Yes, your majesty." The Alpha King's gaze returned to Serena, one last time, measuring, unreadable. "Welcome to the Citadel," he said quietly. "Try not to disappoint me." Then he turned and walked away. Just like that. As if choosing her hadn't shifted the balance of an entire room. As if it hadn't set every other woman's hatred on her like a pack turning on a wounded animal. Serena stayed still until Hagar's hand clamped around her arm. Hard enough to leave marks. "Move," Hagar hissed. Serena let herself be dragged from the hall without stumbling. Without looking back. But one thought cut through everything as the doors closed behind her. Being chosen wasn't a rescue. It was a different kind of cage. And the Alpha King, the one they all feared, had just locked the door from the outside. The East Wing smelled like lye and old leather. Hagar dragged Serena through a narrow corridor lit by iron sconces, her grip unrelenting. The deeper they went, the quieter the citadel became. No laughter. No courtly murmur. Just stone and echo. They stopped at a small door reinforced with iron bands. Hagar shoved it open. Inside, a copper tub steamed in the center of the room. A narrow bed pressed against one wall. A single barred window let in a sliver of gray light. "Strip," Hagar ordered. Serena didn't move. Hagar's gaze sharpened. Now! Serena undressed slowly. Her hands were steadier than she felt. Hagar watched with detached scrutiny, like inspecting livestock for hidden flaws. Get in. The water was scalding. Serena sucked in a breath as she lowered herself into it. Her skin burned instantly. Hagar didn't hand her soap. She took a stiff, bristled brush and began scrubbing. Hard. Across Serena's arms, her shoulders, her back. You reek of your father's pack, Hagar muttered. Of failure, of pity. The bristles dragged across Serena's skin until it stung. Serena bit down on the inside of her cheek and stayed silent. You think you're special because he chose you? Hagar leaned closer. You're not. You're a symbol. A reminder that even broken offerings are beneath him. A bucket of cold water crashed over Serena's head. She gasped. You will smile. You will obey. And you will never forget that you are here because no one else wanted you. When Hagar finished, she threw a thin towel at Serena and gestured toward the bed. A dress lay there. Heavy black wool. High-necked. Long-sleeved. Buttoned from throat to wrist. Armor, not clothing. Stitched into the left shoulder in silver thread was a symbol. A broken crown. Serena stared at it. What does it mean? She asked quietly. Hagar's smile was thin and sharp. It means everyone who sees you will know exactly what you are. She stepped forward and fastened the final button at Serena's throat, tight enough to press against her skin. The king's charity. The door shut behind Hagar with a solid click. A lock turned. Serena stood in the center of the room, her damp hair clinging to her back, the wool already heavy on her shoulders. She moved to the small bed and sat down. The broken crown glinted faintly in the dim light. She traced it once with her finger. A mark of shame. Or something else. Outside, the sun dipped lower. The room darkened. Then, footsteps. Slow, measured, heavy enough that the floor seemed to register each one. They stopped outside her door. The lock turned. The door opened. The Alpha King stood in the doorway. He didn't knock. Didn't ask permission. He stepped inside and closed the door behind him. Serena stood automatically. Her pulse thudded in her throat. He looked at her. Not like a man admiring a woman. Like a strategist evaluating a piece on a board. His gaze moved from the high collar of her dress to the broken crown stitched at her shoulder, then back to her face. How are you finding your accommodations? He asked. His voice was low, even. They're adequate, Serena replied, a faint shift at the corner of his mouth. Not a smile. Adequate, he repeated. He stepped closer, not touching, close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating off him. Hagar scrubbed you raw, he said. It wasn't a question. Serena didn't answer. He reached out then, slowly, and tilted her chin up with 2 fingers. His touch was warm, deliberate. He studied her face, the redness at her eyes, the tightness in her jaw. You're angry, he observed. I'm tired. A beat. Liar. His thumb brushed along her jawline, not gentle, assessing. Do you know why I chose you, Serena? Her throat tightened. Because I'm expendable. His gaze sharpened. No. He dropped his hand and stepped away, pacing once across the small room as if the walls were closer than he preferred. I don't need an heir, he said quietly. I don't want one. Every child born to an Alpha King becomes leverage, a weakness, a future war. He turned back to her. I needed a queen who could not be used against me. Serena's fingers curled at her sides. So I'm insurance. Your strategy. He moved closer again, this time stopping inches away. You also did something none of the others did. Her pulse hammered. What? You looked at me. Silence stretched between them. In the great hall, he continued, I gave a command. Serena frowned slightly. You heard it, he said. I heard you speak. And yet you didn't lower your eyes. She blinked. I didn't know I was supposed to. Something flickered in his expression. Something quick, sharp, gone just as fast. Most wolves would have felt it. Alpha dominance, woven into tone, the instinct to submit. Serena hadn't. He studied her for a long moment, longer than necessary. Then he stepped back. Be careful, he said quietly. Of what? Of testing things you don't understand. He walked to the door and paused, hand resting on the iron handle. You will dine with me tomorrow night. Publicly. Her stomach dropped. Wear that dress, he added, glancing at the broken crown. I want them all to see it. Then he opened the door and left. The lock slid back into place. Serena stood alone in the small stone room, her skin still burning from Hagar's brush, her chin still warm where his fingers had been. He hadn't raised his voice, hadn't softened, hadn't smiled. But something in the air felt altered. She looked down at the broken crown stitched into her shoulder. Not charity, not pity, a declaration. And for the first time since her father priced her like livestock in a council chamber, something shifted in her chest. Not hope. Not yet. But something harder. She would not lower her eyes again. The dining hall was built for intimidation. Long black tables stretched beneath iron chandeliers that cast sharp, fractured light across polished stone. Shadows pooled in the corners like they were listening. Serena stood at the entrance in her heavy black wool, the broken crown stitched over her shoulder gleaming silver in the torchlight. Every conversation slowed. Didn't stop. Slowed. Eyes tracked her the way wolves track something limping. Hagar appeared at her side. The king sits at the head, she murmured. You sit to his right. Do not speak unless addressed. Serena didn't nod. She walked. Each step echoed. At the far end of the table sat Alpha King Ace. No crown, no embellishment. Just black clothing and shoulders broad enough to own the space without trying. He did not rise when she approached. He watched her. Not her face first. Her posture. Her pace. Whether she would hesitate. She didn't. She reached the chair to his right and paused only long enough to confirm he would not object. Sit, he said. She sat. The chair was larger than necessary. The table slightly too high. The positioning deliberate. Ace lifted his hand. The room fell silent. This is Serena, he said. No title, no explanation. She will be dining with me from now on. You will treat her accordingly. That was all. No one questioned it. No one dared. Servants began moving again. Plates were placed. Wine poured. Serena kept her hands folded in her lap. She could feel the eyes on her shoulder, on the broken crown. Ace leaned back slightly, casual, controlled. His gaze moved down the table. Alpha Gregor, he said. The name struck like flint. Serena's pulse spiked. At the lower end of the table, her father looked up sharply. He hadn't seen her yet. Now he had. His face drained of color. Your Majesty, Gregor said, standing too quickly. It's an honor. For the offering, Ace interrupted. The room stilled again. Serena did not look at her father. She kept her eyes forward. She arrived in poor condition, Ace continued calmly. No escort, inadequate clothing, bruises on her arms. Gregor swallowed. There must have been a misunderstanding. There wasn't. Ace's tone did not rise. It sharpened. You sent her like excess cargo, as if eager to clear space. A murmur rippled down the table. Serena could feel it. Shock, curiosity, calculation. Ace picked up his knife, cut into his food with slow precision. Be grateful, he said quietly, that I do not return trade goods in the condition they arrive. Gregor sat, hard. His hands trembled. Serena's throat tightened. Not from pity, from something else. Control. Ace resumed eating as if nothing had shifted. But it had. Halfway through the meal, a chair scraped. Isla stood, dressed in pale silk, braids woven with silver thread. She moved with deliberate grace down the table until she stopped behind Serena's chair. Sister, Isla said sweetly. Serena did not turn. I was worried about you, Isla continued, when Father said you'd be safe here. A soft chuckle from somewhere across the table. Isla leaned closer, her voice dropping just enough to feel intimate. But I see the king has unusual tastes. Ace's knife stopped mid-cut. A barely perceptible pause. Serena felt it. The room felt it. Isla's fingers brushed the back of Serena's chair. Tell me, Isla whispered. Have you shifted yet? Or is that still beyond you? The air went razor thin. Serena could feel the heat crawling up her spine. She did not react. Isla smiled faintly. Perhaps that's why he prefers you, she added softly. Broken things are easier to control. The sound of metal against porcelain rang through the hall. Ace set down his knife. He did not stand. He did not raise his voice. Step away from her. Isla froze. Your Majesty, I was only... Step away. Silver eyes locked onto Isla with surgical precision. She stepped back. Then another. Ace did not blink. Serena sits at my right hand, he said calmly. Do you understand what that means? Isla's throat moved as she swallowed. It means, Ace continued, that any insult directed at her is directed at me. He lifted his wineglass, took a measured sip. And I do not tolerate insults. Silence suffocated the hall. Alpha Gregor, Ace added without looking at him. Control your daughter. Gregor stood instantly. Isla, sit down. Isla's cheeks flushed red. She returned to her seat without another word. The meal resumed, quieter now. Serena's hands were trembling beneath the table. Ace leaned slightly toward her. Eat, he said, low enough that only she heard. You're shaking. She hadn't realized. She picked up her fork, forced herself to take a bite. The food tasted like ash. When the meal ended, chairs scraped and nobles dispersed in cautious clusters. Serena's family did not approach her. They left quickly. Ace stood, extended his hand. Come. She hesitated only a second before placing her hand in his. His palm was warm, solid, rough with calluses. He did not release her as they walked, through corridors, through torchlight, through watching eyes. When they reached the east wing door, he stopped. Your sister will try again, he said. She always does. Ace's gaze shifted to her face. Why didn't you respond? Serena met his eyes evenly. Because she wanted me to. A beat. Something unreadable moved across his expression. Approval. Interest. It was gone too quickly to name. You learn quickly, he said. He released her hand, then reached up, without warning, and adjusted the collar of her dress. The gesture looked harmless. It wasn't. His fingers brushed her throat, lingering half a second too long. Remember something, Serena, he said quietly. What? You stand beside me now. His eyes darkened slightly. Do not let anyone make you forget it. He stepped back. The door opened behind her. She entered. It closed. The lock slid into place. Serena stood in the dim room, her pulse still racing, her throat still warm where his fingers had touched. He had not smiled, had not softened, had not called her anything but her name. But in that hall, in front of her father, in front of her sister, he had drawn a line, and everyone had seen it. Morning came with a single measured knock. Not Hagar's fist, not urgency, precision. Serena sat up slowly in the narrow bed. The heavy black dress hung over the chair where she'd left it. The broken crown caught the gray morning light. "Enter," she said. The door opened. A young woman stepped inside, dressed in plain gray, dark hair pulled tight, eyes sharp. "My name is Marin," she said. "I've been assigned to you." "Assigned?" "As your attendant." Marin moved to the chair, lifting the black dress and smoothing the fabric with efficient hands. "The king has requested your presence in the lower library. You have 30 minutes. Serena's pulse quickened. She dressed quickly, the wool still stiff, the collar still high, the broken crown still visible. Marin returned exactly on time and led her through narrower corridors than before, down stone steps that felt older, quieter. The lower library smelled like dust and old parchment. Maps covered a long wooden table in the center of the room, weighted at the corners. Ink markings sharp and deliberate. Alpha King Ace stood at the table, hands braced against the wood. He did not look up when she entered. "Close the door," he said. She did. The click echoed softly. He straightened slowly, silver eyes lifting to meet hers. "Do you read?" he asked. "Yes." "Right?" "Yes." He gestured toward the maps. "Good." Serena stepped closer. The maps showed territories, lines drawn and redrawn, notes in the margins, markings that looked like pressure points. "The northern territories are fracturing," Ace said calmly. 3 of 5 packs are threatening to break treaty. They claim I've grown isolated." He tapped one corner of the map. "Your father's pack is among them." Serena's jaw tightened. "They're meeting in 2 weeks," he continued. "A council, to discuss my removal." His tone did not shift. He might have been discussing weather. "And you're telling me this because?" she asked carefully. He moved around the table, stopping directly in front of her. Because the room was small, it forced proximity. "You are invisible to them," he said. Serena held his gaze. "They speak in front of you," he continued. "They underestimate you. They mistake silence for weakness." "And you don't?" A flicker, barely there. He stepped closer. "You didn't respond to your sister last night." "I didn't need to." "Why?" "She wanted spectacle." A pause. "And you denied it to her." Serena shrugged faintly. Ace's eyes lingered on her a moment longer than necessary. Then he stepped back. "You will listen," he said. "You will observe. You will report to me, every evening, alone. And if I refuse?" The air shifted, not dramatically, subtly. He did not raise his voice. "You won't." It wasn't threat. It was certainty. Serena folded her hands behind her back so he wouldn't see them tremble. "You assume a great deal." "I calculate." He moved past her, retrieving a parchment. "As do you." She blinked. He placed the parchment in her hand. "I read the trade records your father submitted," he said. "The ones he assumed no one would examine closely." Her pulse stuttered. "You noticed the discrepancies," he continued. "You corrected them in the margins, quietly." She had. She hadn't thought anyone noticed. "You sign your annotations with a different ink," he added calmly. "Subtle." Serena stared at him. "I don't overlook details," he said. The weight of the statement settled between them. She wasn't here because she was broken. She was here because he had seen something. "Why didn't you confront him?" he asked. "My father?" "Yes." Serena's voice stayed even. "Because it would have embarrassed him publicly. And that would have been wasteful." A silence stretched, not hostile, measured. Ace's gaze sharpened slightly. "Wasteful," he repeated. "Humiliation closes doors," she said. "Quiet correction keeps them open." His jaw flexed faintly. Again, no visible reaction beyond that. "Good," he said finally. He moved back to the map. "Your sister takes tea in the garden at the third bell," he said. "You will join her." Serena stiffened. "She will talk," he added. "People like her always do. And when she realizes I'm reporting to you?" "She won't." He looked up again. "And if she suspects?" He held her gaze steadily. "Then she will learn that you are no longer defenseless." Serena didn't miss the phrasing. Not protected, not hidden, not saved, no longer defenseless. Footsteps echoed faintly in the corridor beyond. Ace's expression shifted. Colder. "Go," he said. Serena turned toward the door. "Serena?" She paused. "Yes?" "When they try to provoke you." "They will." "Yes." A faint edge entered his tone. "Do not flinch." She met his eyes evenly. "I don't." Something in his gaze darkened. Approval. Danger. She couldn't tell. She opened the door and stepped into the corridor. Marin was waiting. As they walked away, Serena felt it again. The weight of unseen attention. Not suffocating, not protective. Assessing. Alpha King Ace had chosen her. Not out of pity, not out of mercy. Out of calculation. And for the first time since leaving her father's pack, Serena understood something clearly. If she survived this court, it would not be because she begged, it would be because she proved him right. The garden was too beautiful for war. Sunlight filtered through trimmed branches. Stone paths curved around fountains that whispered softly. It felt curated, controlled. Isla stood beside one of the fountains, pale silk catching the light like she belonged there. She turned when Serena approached. For a moment, something flickered across her face. Not hatred, something more fragile. Then it was gone. "You look different," Isla said lightly. Serena stopped a few paces away. "Do I?" "You're standing straighter." Serena didn't respond. Isla smiled faintly. "Has he touched you yet?" The question was soft, deliberate. Serena felt the heat rise along her spine, but she kept her expression neutral. "Is that why you came?" Serena asked calmly. "To gossip?" Isla's smile faltered slightly. "You think you're untouchable because you sit beside him," she said. "But you don't understand how this court works." "Then explain it to me." Isla stepped closer. "They think he's distracted," she said. "They think you've compromised him." "Have I?" "Yes." The word came too quickly. Serena tilted her head slightly. "Then perhaps he is weaker than you thought." Isla's eyes flashed. "Don't be naive. They're gathering votes. Father is leading them. They'll demand he take a proper mate, one who can secure his bloodline. And if he refuses, they'll force him." A quiet settled between them. Serena watched her sister carefully. "Why tell me this?" she asked. Isla's jaw tightened. "Because when they move," she said, "you will be the first to fall." Serena did not blink. "You're still my sister." Isla's voice wavered for half a second, then hardened again. "No," she said. "You stopped being my sister when you decided to stand beside him." Footsteps interrupted them. Guards. Too many. Serena turned slowly. Lord Tovan stood at the edge of the garden, scroll in hand. "By the old law," he announced, voice carrying cleanly, "a blood challenge has been invoked." The garden went silent. Isla stepped back, but she didn't look surprised. Serena's stomach dropped. "Against whom?" she asked. Tovan's eyes flicked to her shoulder, to the broken crown. "Against Serena," he said. "For betrayal of Pack. For conspiring against Northern Alliance." Murmurs rippled. Serena looked at Isla. Isla's lips parted slightly. "You're insane," Serena said quietly. "I invoke my right," Isla replied. "You revealed our counsel. You sided with him." "You revealed it yourself," Serena said calmly. Isla's voice sharpened. "Prove it." Tovan unrolled the scroll. "The law states," he read smoothly, "that any Pack member may challenge another for crimes against bloodline. If the accused cannot defend themselves," he paused, "they forfeit position and life." The words landed like iron. Serena felt her pulse in her throat. Footsteps thundered behind them. The garden parted as Alpha King Ace entered. He did not rush. He did not shout. He walked. The space bent around him. "What is this?" he asked quietly. Tovan bowed his head slightly. "An invocation of old law, Your Majesty." Ace's silver eyes settled on Serena first. Not the scroll, not Tovan. Serena. "Is this true?" he asked. "I spoke what they were already saying," she replied. Isla stepped forward. "She betrayed us." Ace's gaze shifted to Isla. "Did she?" The question was not loud. It was worse. Isla swallowed. "She exposed council discussions." Serena held Ace's gaze. "I repeated what she told me in this garden." A silence. Sharp. Tovan cleared his throat. "The law does not require proof of treason," he said smoothly. "Only acceptance of challenge." Ace's jaw flexed. "You would invoke ancient law over political embarrassment?" he asked. Tovan did not flinch. "The law applies equally to all." Ace's gaze returned to Serena. "Do not accept this," he said quietly. It wasn't a command. It was something else. Serena's heart hammered. If she refused, they would whisper. If she accepted, she could not shift. She could not fight a wolf. She would die. Fear crawled up her spine. Hot. Real. She imagined her father watching, Isla smiling, the court murmuring that she had begged. She lifted her chin. "I accept," she said. Gasps erupted. Ace stepped forward instantly, gripping her arm. "You do not need to prove anything," he said low. "Yes, I do." "You will not survive this." "Then let them see me die standing." The words surprised even her. Ace's eyes darkened. Not anger. Something deeper. The garden cleared into a rough circle. Isla stepped back, already beginning to shift. Bones cracked. Fur rippled. Within seconds, a pale gray wolf stood where her sister had been. Large, strong, everything Serena was not. Serena stepped into the center. Her knees wanted to buckle. Her throat felt dry. She did not move. She did not beg. She did not lower her eyes. The wolf lunged. Time fractured. Serena did not run. She met the wolf's gaze. Not defiance, not dominance, just refusal. The wolf's jaws opened inches from her throat and hesitated. A ripple went through the garden. The hesitation lasted barely a heartbeat, but it was there. Then a massive black shape slammed into the gray wolf from the side. Chaos erupted. Alpha King Ace shifted mid-motion. Black fur, silver eyes, enormous. The impact sent Isla's wolf tumbling across stone. The black wolf stood over her, teeth bared, a low growl rumbling like distant thunder. The gray wolf shifted back into Isla, scrambling backward. "I didn't," she stammered. The black wolf snarled. Silence fell instantly. Ace shifted back into human form, chest heaving slightly, eyes still silver. "The blood challenge is void," he said. His voice was rough, controlled fury beneath it. "She stands under my protection." Tovan stiffened. "The law." "I am the law," Ace replied calmly. No shout, no theatrics, just fact. "Anyone who challenges her," he continued, gaze sweeping the gathered nobles, "challenges me." No one spoke. No one dared. Serena was still standing in the center, breathing hard, hands shaking. Ace crossed the distance in 3 strides. He stopped inches from her. "Are you hurt?" he asked. "No." A beat. "You did not beg." Serena met his gaze. "I won't." Something shifted in his expression. Not softness, recognition. He turned to the assembly. "Take your daughter," he said to Alpha Gregor, who had just arrived at the edge of the crowd. "And leave my territory." Her father looked shaken. "Your Majesty." "Now." Gregor grabbed Isla's arm. They left. The garden emptied slowly. Serena's legs felt weak. Ace's hand came to her shoulder, steadying, not possessive, not yet. "You should have listened," he said quietly. "Would you have respected me if I had?" A pause. His eyes held hers. "No." The admission was quiet, unavoidable. Serena swallowed. The fear was still there, but something else sat beside it now. He had seen her. And this time, it had not been calculation. It had been something earned. The Citadel did not sleep easily after the blood challenge. Whispers moved through corridors like drafts beneath doors. Servants paused when Serena passed. Guards watched her differently now. Not pity, not mockery. Something cautious. Serena felt it. She also felt the bruise blooming along her arm where Ace had gripped her before the challenge. She didn't resent it. She remembered his eyes when she'd said, "I accept." That had not been anger. That had been something closer to fear. 3 nights later, the attack came. It began with shouting near the outer gate. Then the clang of metal. Then a scream. Serena was halfway down the east corridor when the second scream cut through the stone like a blade. Not a warrior's cry. A child's. She didn't think. She ran. The corridor opened into a smaller courtyard used for servants and lower-ranking pack families. Panic had erupted there. Women dragging children behind them. Guards trying to form lines as 3 masked men forced their way through the archway. Rebel sympathizers. Not enough to breach the Citadel fully. Enough to cause chaos. One of the attackers grabbed a small boy by the collar. The child couldn't have been more than 5. He struggled weakly, feet kicking against air. The man drew a blade. Serena stepped between them. She didn't calculate. Didn't consider the fact that she couldn't shift. Didn't consider how easily the blade could cut her. She simply stepped forward. "Let him go," she said. The attacker laughed. "And who are you?" Serena didn't answer. She planted herself in front of the child. The blade shifted toward her instead. The man hesitated only slightly. "You have no wolf," he sneered. "No," she agreed. He lunged. The strike came fast, too fast. Serena didn't dodge. She couldn't. She lifted her arm instinctively. The attacker was ripped backward mid-motion. A black blur collided with him so violently that bones snapped on impact. A massive black wolf landed between Serena and the remaining attackers, silver eyes blazing. The courtyard fell silent. The other 2 masked men tried to retreat. They didn't get far. Guards surged forward now that the tide had shifted. Within seconds, the attackers were subdued. The black wolf turned. Silver eyes locked onto Serena. Not checking the courtyard. Not scanning for threat. Her. The wolf shifted. Alpha King Ace stood before her, chest rising and falling steadily, expression carved from stone. "Are you hurt?" he asked. Serena lowered her arm slowly. "No." His gaze flicked to the small boy now clinging to her dress. The child's face was streaked with tears. Serena crouched and pulled him gently into her arms. "It's over," she whispered. The boy buried his face against her shoulder. Ace watched. He said nothing. The courtyard guards had gone still, not from fear, from observation. Serena stood again, still holding the child. "You shouldn't have stepped in," Ace said quietly. "He would have died." A pause. His gaze remained on her. "And you would have?" "If I had to." The words weren't dramatic. They were simple. Ace's jaw flexed faintly. He turned to the guards. "Double the watch at every gate," he ordered. "No one enters without clearance." Then his attention returned to Serena. The child had stopped crying. He was staring at her like she was something solid in a shaking world. Serena handed him gently back to his mother. The woman fell to her knees before Serena without thinking. "Thank you," she whispered. Serena startled slightly. More servants bowed their heads. Not deeply, but enough. Respect moved through the courtyard like a tide shifting direction. Ace noticed. He noticed everything. He stepped closer to Serena, lowered his voice. "You cannot keep doing this." "Doing what?" "Placing yourself between danger and consequence." Serena met his gaze evenly. "You asked me not to flinch." His expression changed, subtle, complex. "You did not," he said. A faint tension lingered between them. Then he reached up, slowly, and brushed a smear of dirt from her cheek with his thumb. The gesture was brief, almost absent-minded. But the guards saw it. The servants saw it. Serena felt it. Ace stepped back immediately, as if aware of the weight of that single touch. "You will remain inside tonight," he said. "That sounds like an order." "It is." She tilted her head slightly. "And if I refuse?" A beat. Silver eyes held hers. "You won't." The same certainty as before. Not dominance. Recognition. Serena didn't argue. As he turned to leave, the mother of the rescued boy spoke up shakily. "She stood without a wolf," the woman said to the other servants. "For my son." The words carried. Serena felt them land. Ace paused mid-step. Didn't turn. Didn't acknowledge the comment. But something in his shoulders shifted. Later that night, when Serena returned to her room, the guards outside her door stood straighter. They did not look through her. They looked at her. The broken crown on her shoulder no longer gleamed like mockery. It gleamed like warning. She sat on the edge of her bed, pulse still racing from the attack. A soft knock came, not urgent, measured. She didn't need to ask who it was. "Enter," she said quietly. Ace stepped inside. He closed the door behind him, didn't approach immediately. "You frightened the entire courtyard," he said. "I frightened you." A faint tightening at the corner of his mouth. "Do not presume." "You shifted faster than the guards." Silence. He stepped closer, close enough that she felt it again, the space narrowing. "You are not invincible," he said. "I know." "And yet you act as though consequence does not apply to you." Serena lifted her chin slightly. "It applies to everyone." A long pause. Then, "You did well," he said quietly. The words were restrained. Not praise, not indulgence, but something weightier, earned. Serena felt it settle in her chest. You are dangerous, he added. She blinked. I can't even shift. That is not the only way to be dangerous. He studied her for a moment longer. Then he turned toward the door. As his hand reached for the handle, he spoke without looking back. They are underestimating you. Serena swallowed. So were you. A pause. He did not deny it. The door opened, closed, locked. Serena remained standing in the center of her room, heart still unsteady. For the first time since arriving at the Citadel, the court had bowed to her, not because Ace commanded it, because she had stood, and Ace had seen it. The rebellion did not move quietly after the failed blood challenge. It moved carefully. Letters stopped arriving from the northern packs. Trade shipments slowed. Delegates began leaving the Citadel under polite excuses. And yet, they lingered just long enough to watch. Serena felt it in every corridor, measured glances, whispered conversations that died when she passed. They were waiting for her to falter. They were waiting for Ace to choose stability over her. The summons came 3 days later, not from Ace, from the council. Serena entered the chamber with her head high and the broken crown stitched over her shoulder like a brand. Ace was already seated at the head of the table. He did not look at her immediately, but when she took the chair to his right, his hand shifted slightly on the armrest, claiming the space without touching her. At the far end stood her father. Beside him, Isla, pale, tighter around the mouth than before. Lord Tovan unrolled a scroll. The Northern Territories have voted, he announced, unanimously. Ace leaned back slightly. On what? He asked. On your removal, Tovan replied, effective immediately. A ripple moved through the chamber. Ace did not flinch. And the justification? He asked calmly. Your attachment to this woman, Tovan said. The word carried weight. Attachment. Serena felt every eye on her. You defend her over alliances, Tovan continued. You disregard tradition. You risk war over sentiment. Ace's gaze finally shifted to Serena. Brief, sharp, then back to Tovan. Continue, he said. You were offered a solution, Tovan said. Return her to her pack. Choose a fertile mate. Restore stability. Serena's father stepped forward. Your Majesty, Gregor said, voice strained. This does not need to escalate. Send her back. The matter ends. Serena stood. The scrape of her chair cut through the chamber. No, she said. The word was clear. Even. Tovan blinked. Sit, he said sharply. Serena did not move. You speak of stability, she continued calmly. Yet you invoke ancient law for personal humiliation. You incite blood challenge over wounded pride. You threaten secession because you dislike who sits beside him. Her gaze moved down the table deliberately. You are not concerned with the kingdom. She looked directly at her father. You are concerned with control. Gregor's face flushed red. You presume too much. No, she replied quietly. You do. Isla stepped forward suddenly. You think you've won? She snapped. You think standing beside him makes you powerful? Serena turned to face her sister fully. I stood without him, she said. The memory of the blood challenge hung heavy in the air. Isla faltered. You are nothing without his protection, she pushed. Serena tilted her head slightly. Then remove it. A murmur. Ace's eyes sharpened. You dare? Isla whispered. I dare you, Serena said calmly. Challenge me again, without lies, without twisting law. Stand before this court and say plainly that you resent me. Silence crushed the room. Isla's breath quickened. I was jealous, she burst out suddenly. The admission hit harder than accusation. Serena did not soften. You were cruel, she corrected. Isla's voice broke. You were always father's favorite. Serena laughed once. Short, bitter. I was easier to sacrifice. Gregor flinched as if struck. Serena stepped closer to the table. You traded me, she said evenly. You sent me like cargo. You told yourself it was kindness. She looked at him fully now. It was convenience. The room had gone utterly still. Ace had not spoken, had not intervened. He was watching. Gregor's hands trembled. You don't understand what leadership requires, he said hoarsely. No, Serena agreed. I do. She turned slightly toward Ace. You stand by strength, she said clearly. Then let strength stand. Ace rose slowly from his seat. The movement alone silenced the chamber. He stepped beside her. Not in front. Beside. You have voted, he said calmly to Tovan. You have declared intent. He reached forward and lifted the scroll from Tovan's hand, read it once, then tore it cleanly in half. The sound echoed. You mistake loyalty for weakness, Ace continued. You mistake restraint for compromise. His gaze settled on Gregor. You threw away something you did not understand. He stepped closer to the end of the table. And now you expect me to do the same? Gregor said nothing. He couldn't. If you secede, Ace said, voice low and controlled, you declare war. Tovan swallowed. That is not our wish. It will be your outcome. Silence again. Ace's gaze returned to Serena. Not long, not indulgent, but steady. Then he addressed the chamber. She remains, he said simply. No title, no explanation, just fact. Any who disagree, he added, may leave my territory within 3 days. No one moved. Isla's face crumpled. Sister, she whispered. Serena did not step toward her. Do not contact me again, she said quietly. Do not write. Do not come to my door asking forgiveness because consequence frightens you. Isla's eyes filled. You would abandon me? Serena held her gaze. You abandoned me first. Ace's presence beside her felt solid, unmovable. Gregor grabbed Isla's arm. We're leaving, he said. They walked out. Slowly. No one stopped them. When the doors closed, the chamber exhaled. War hung heavy in the air. Ace looked down at Serena. You made yourself a target, he said. I already was. A faint shift in his expression. You do not regret it? No. A pause. Then, good. He turned back to the remaining nobles. Prepare the borders, he ordered. Reinforce outer gates. Increase patrols. The room erupted into movement. Serena stood still, her pulse steady. She had not begged. Not during the blood challenge, not during this. She had stood. Ace leaned closer slightly. They expected you to crumble, he murmured. They still do. His silver eyes held hers. Let them. The war had not begun yet, but the lines were drawn, and this time, she had chosen where she stood. The coronation was not delayed. War loomed. Stability had to be visible. The great hall filled before dusk, not as crowded as before. Some nobles had already fled north. Others lingered, calculating survival. Serena stood at the front of the hall in black silk instead of wool. The broken crown was gone from her shoulder. In its place, resting on a velvet cushion beside her, was a circlet of silver shaped like a wolf mid-leap. Diamonds caught the torchlight in sharp flashes. Ace stood at her side, not touching, but close enough that the air between them felt claimed. The priest stepped forward. By the old laws and the new, he intoned, voice steady. By bond and by choice, I present Serena. A murmur moved through the hall. Not of her former pack, the priest continued. Not defined by bloodline, not judged by wolf. He lifted the silver crown. Chosen for Will. The metal touched her head. It was lighter than she expected. Heavier, too. The hall did not erupt immediately. It waited. For Ace. He stepped forward, took Serena's hand, lifted it high enough that everyone could see. This is my queen, he said. No flourish, no theatrics, just certainty. My equal. The word struck harder than any title. She stands beside me, he continued. Not because I granted her position. His grip tightened slightly. But because she proved she belongs. The applause began, tentative at first, then louder, not commanded, given. Serena met the eyes of the servants who had bowed in the courtyard, the guards who had watched her stand without flinching. They did not look at her with doubt now. They looked at her with expectation. Ace leaned slightly toward her. Do not look overwhelmed, he murmured. I'm not. A faint shift at the corner of his mouth. Good. He turned her toward the hall again. Any who challenge her, he said calmly, challenge me. The message was clear, permanent. After the ceremony, the hall thinned slowly. The loyal remained. The uncertain drifted away. Serena stepped onto the battlements later that night. Wind cut across the stone. The northern territories stretched beyond the horizon, dark and restless. Footsteps approached behind her, measured, familiar. Ace stopped close enough that she could feel the warmth of him at her back. He did not touch her immediately. They will march, she said quietly. Yes. My father. Yes. She did not ask if he would show mercy. She knew the answer. Silence stretched between them. Then, you did not lower your eyes, he said. She glanced back slightly. I told you I wouldn't. He stepped closer now, close enough that his breath brushed her hair. They tried to break you. They failed. A beat. You frightened them. She almost smiled. Good. His hand came to her waist. Firm, possessive, unhidden now, the gesture no longer subtle. You stood without protection, he said. I stood with choice. Another silence. The wind howled softly along the stone. You are not what they thought, he said. No. His grip tightened slightly. You are not what I thought. She turned then, slowly, until she faced him fully. What did you think? His silver eyes held hers. I thought you were useful. A pause. And now? His jaw flexed faintly. Now you are necessary. The words landed heavier than confession. Serena's pulse skipped. Careful, she said softly. That almost sounded like affection. His expression did not soften, but his hand slid higher along her back. You mistake necessity for weakness. I don't. A moment passed, charged, measured. Then his fingers tilted her chin upward, deliberate. Lock your door tonight, he said quietly. Her breath caught. Is that an order? Yes. And if I don't? His eyes darkened. Then I will come anyway. The possessiveness was no longer implied. It was declared. Serena did not look away. War is coming, she said. Yes. And if we lose? He stepped closer still, until there was no space left between them. We won't. That isn't an answer. It is the only one that matters. He studied her face as if memorizing it. Not gently, intensely. You chose this, he said. I did. Even knowing the cost. Yes. His thumb brushed once across her lower lip. Controlled, testing. Good. The word came out rougher than before. He leaned down, paused, close enough that she could feel the heat of him. "Say my name," he said quietly. "Alpha King Ace," she replied. A flicker of something sharp crossed his expression. "Not that one." A pause. "Ace." The name changed the air. His jaw tightened. For a moment, he looked almost not vulnerable, exposed. Then it was gone. He kissed her. Not soft, not hesitant. Claiming. Measured control breaking only at the edges. When he pulled back, his forehead rested briefly against hers. "You terrify me," he said quietly. She smiled faintly. "Good." His hand remained at her waist, solid, unyielding. Behind them, the kingdom shifted toward war. Ahead of them, the northern territories gathered. Serena did not feel small. She did not feel discarded. She stood crowned, chosen. And this time, she had chosen back.